Well, I love talking football with this guy, Marc Trestman. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate it. I can't believe I'm saying this. How's retirement life treating you?
Keep them busy.
Yeah,
There's plenty to do, and
yeah.
working on my golf game every day. So, yeah, I've got plenty. I made sure I had plenty to do. I teach a leadership course at the University of Miami Law School in the spring.
hmm
I'm working on a book, and I'm playing golf and doing some traveling, seeing my family. So, keep them busy.
So, what's the book going to be about?
The book is. I don't want to digress too much,
hmm
but it's going to be called Teach the Game.
Hmm.
And it is a book for, I would say, high school, college, and football, NFL coaches, professional coaches, and the like, and really teaching them the game from the quarterback position and then all the situations that come up in the game of football. An example might be, I'll say 2-minute drill. We're not talking CFL, but 2-minute drill, for instance.
hmm
People say, well, they're in a 2-minute offense, but there's 14 sub situations in a 2-minute offense. There's 5 or 6 in a 4-minute offense when teams are trying to keep the lead and keep the ball away from their opponent. So with that in mind, I just put together for the last 3 or 4 months every special situation I could put in. But I also wanted everybody to learn what the quarterback was all about, because even the coaches that I've worked with, if you don't coach the position, you're a defensive line coach, a special teams coach, and you don't understand where the quarterback is coming from because he is the tip of the iceberg in the game itself, then you're going to be limited in your understanding of the game. It
hmm
all starts with the quarterback, what he sees, how he plays, how he takes care of the football. Everything resonates and is directly or indirectly related to that. So I spent quite a bit of time on that,
hmm
and then breaking down offensive, defensive, special teams philosophies, and then the special situations that people really don't hear about or know about. But these are the game-defining decisions, that game management decisions that coaches are making all the time. And I didn't want it to just be for coaches. I want it to be for fans who are more interested in getting an inside look at the game, not a, quote, football for dummies, but people. I've written it in a way that I've taken a complex game and try to make it simple enough that it'll be fun for everybody to read.
I like that because life has become about dummies. Like honestly, it's become dumbed down is the way I look at it. Like sometimes, some people could say this about me too, but like you kind of get blowhards on panels and everything like that, and they talk and they talk, but sometimes it's like, what are you even saying? Like, so I like the fact that you're going to take a deeper dive into something like that. I've talked to my son about this, who's trying to get on with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but he grew up a CFL fan. I sat with Ben Cahoon's roommate in Utah, or he did, and his mom, while I was working the sidelines, your sidelines, the Alouette sidelines, and he hung in talking about Ben Cahoon as an 8 and 9 year old kid. So he grew up wanting to be a CFL fan. He said, or player, pardon me. He said, I like the fact that Marc Trestman, who is an American and coached both sides of the border, that he loves the game, and the word he used was reverence for the game. So I'll pose the question to you. Where does that reverence come from? Not just for football in general, but the CFL game.
Yeah. Well, when I went to the CFL, it was a game that I knew nothing about. When I interviewed with Bob Whittenhall, I actually said to him that I don't think I'm going to be running the offense. I'll manage the team because I don't know the rules. I don't know what the game is all about, but I think I can manage the locker room. And then I wound up spending time with Anthony and Ben. We had kind of a, I don't know what you call it. It was a mini camp, but it really wasn't, where we spent some time together. And then I started listening to them and the things that we wanted to do with motions and asking about certain things. And then I got into the rules, all the special teams rules. And I just realized this is an unbelievable game. Whoever thought of 1 yard off the ball and 65 yards wide and 120 long, I mean, they just didn't draw in the dirt and decide this is what they really thought it through. The speed of the game, 3 downs. So I just came to respect it and love it. And I was fortunate to have Anthony and guys like Ben Cahoon and Brian Chu and, Burke and all these guys, Lambert and, Avon Coburn and all these guys that, Jamel Richardson, that SJ, that we just kind of came together and we're going to make it the best game we can possibly make it. And we're going to utilize all these rules to our advantage. And the more I was around it, the more I just was amazed at what a great game it was, and realized it was as good a game as any game played south of the border.
And I'm glad a guy like you says that, because I've kind of been battling media and fan types with that. Like, I don't think the game is broken. I've never thought the CFL game is broken, or the Canadian game at all levels. Like, I do think it's a beautiful game. I personally think it's the best version of football on the planet. I'm not saying it's better than the NFL. I just the actual game. So when I hear a guy like you say that, it really kind of puts a smile on my insides, because I'm like, yes, like there's a guy that's a coach at the highest level in both leagues and gets it.
Yeah, well, the game has already been tweaked, and I remember sitting in a rules meeting with Wally Bono, early in my CFL career, and Wally would sit there and listen to all the different ideas, and he'd say, "You got to be careful here, because we're messing with a great game, because people want to change things, and they already have." When you change one thing, there's a dynamic ripple effect with other things that people aren't seeing when they're asking for these changes. So I always remember Wally Bono saying, we're messing with a great game. Let's be careful not to change it.
Yeah. Well, you're a bright man, so let me ask you this question. If there was anything, I know you don't follow the CFL as much as you used to, I get it, but if there was anything that you would change about the game when you were here, was there anything that you would have changed where you're like, because you have the American outside influence coaching at both in all levels, would there be a rule that you'd say, okay, maybe we could do without this or change that?
I think the biggest changes I would look at is, there are safety issues in how in the timing of how games were played when I was coaching, too close together. That to me was a lack of interest in the safety and health of the players. I don't think it was intentional, but I do think that people who are making those decisions have to understand, the amount of energy that's expended, the physicality of the game, that players need time for their bodies to recover. There's a lot of inflammation that players go through after a game. And, it's the same thing as the NFL playing Sunday, Thursday. They do it once a season. They don't do it 2 or 3 times. But still, I think I still look at it as a safety issue for the players. But in terms of rules, I know they moved the hash marks. I don't think they needed to do that. I don't know why they needed to do that. The league the game is explosive enough without it. There's other things that I haven't followed that I'm sure have been changed, but it'd be good to take a look at the game now and take a look at it, 12, 14 years ago, and see, somebody do a deeper dive into what the changes have really meant to the game.
So, like I said, you're one of the bright, young minds. Bright young minds. There you go, Mark. You're one of the bright minds.
It's all relative. Yeah, I think I am, but
yeah, you are. You're looking young, man. Hey, you're one of the bright minds to ever come through here. But let me ask you this. We've lost a generation of fans. I really think it hurt the CFL when they didn't play during COVID, but, a lot of that had to do with money, and I don't write the checks. How would you increase attendance or solve maybe some of the attendance woes that we have in some of these places? Yeah. I know a lot of it has to do with winning. When you win, people come to games. But what would you do? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't. I don't know everything that's going on there like I used to. But when I thought of the CFL, I think that there's no quick fixes. I think that in any problem you have, everybody's looking for an immediate fix. I think the way I try to look at problems is try to look at it over the long road. Play the long game to get the best results, because 14-year-olds today could be 24-year-old CFL fans before you know it. But if the league is going through the same things over and over again over the last 10 or 12 years, and I believe they have. I mean, it was even going on. I mean, we were lucky in Montreal. We always had good crowds, but you can't say that about everywhere. You know, that even then you couldn't. Is trying to take a long view approach, and that means finding ways to get young people to the games. And the way to get young people to the games is to have the parents being able to afford to get them to the games. It would be something to do. That's always a starting point, getting in the schools. And just saying the 14, you know, if we just said the 14-year-olds are going to be the fans of tomorrow, then all of a sudden the game's population of fans could grow. But that's just a very simplified, and I'm sure there's people that know that. I don't know the economics of the league. I don't know how the league is structured. I don't know the TV contract, but you know, to get people interested to build the next generation of fans has to start now, you know, and whatever that costs or means, you know. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's more to it than that, but I don't think this is the time or place to do it.
No,
That's just
I get it.
a thought that I.
Like I've always said this, Mark. Maybe, you know, 12 and under get in free. Get them to the game. Get them exposed. Now mom and dad can buy them a hot dog and a drink and maybe a hat or something like that. And you know, I think that might be something they have to look at.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if dad comes or mom and dad comes and the kids come in free and the kids' food at half price, you're going to build a fan base and create a party atmosphere and a fun atmosphere. It's something for families to do. And, you know, what do families have to do, you know, over the long run as it gets towards fall in Canada? You know?
Good point. Mark, you talk about the book and different situations you want to take fans behind. I've talked to a number of your former players who they've never said, "Oh, I hated Marc Trestman." They've always talked about how buttoned up you were from making them stand in a straight line at the national anthem, because if you can't even do that, then you can't go on the field and perform, to the 57-3. It's a 57-minute league or game and a 3-minute game. So talk about, I think that's inside of one of your Grey Cup rings, if I'm not mistaken. Mark, talk about how tough was it to close out a game? Like, was that an eye-opener for you when you came to Canada as a head coach, closing out the game in the last 3 minutes?
Well, let me digress for a minute.
Yeah.
That wasn't the reason why we stood at attention for the national anthem.
Yeah.
The reason we stood at the attention for the national anthem is because the Canadian national anthem is because we have Americans and Canadians standing on that line, some of whom are sons or grandsons or relatives of people that fought for the freedom of Canada and North America. Many of them are in the stands the night we are playing. And those of us from the United States have the privilege of earning our living in Canada. It wasn't discipline, it was respect.
Love it.
Respect for the opportunity to play a great game in a country that most of us don't live in full time, and with people that have family or are children of people who gave their lives, the ultimate sacrifice, so we could play the game in Canada. That was the reason. Because you have to have a why. Because when you're coaching Generation Y, WHY. They want to know why. So if you give them a good reason why, that is built around common sense, it's an easy sell. It's not a disciplinary thing. It's not because we can play better on game day. We lost games and we still stood at attention. But that's growing people and teaching empathy and vulnerability and things that I think are more important than winning on the scoreboard.
For sure. And I like that. And good way to put it. And I don't, there's a couple of teams that do that in the league. And I like that idea. Well put, Mark. But in terms of closing the game out, 3 minutes to go, was that a real eye-opener for you that you can get that many possessions in the last 3 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, we lost a game early my first year because I'm playing the game like I would a 2-minute drill in the United States, right? And like I said, it's because of the number of possessions. I mean, we found that out in our first Grey Cup win, against Saskatchewan. We were down by 17, I think. We played Calgary, at home one week, and we were down a ton in the fourth quarter, and we wound up winning that game. So there's so many ways to manage the game that are much more difficult, which it is very much a thinking person's game.
Yeah.
On so many respects, from the day after a game where you've got to sit down and go, you've got these 3 injuries, we're starting 7 Canadians, how do we practice this week? Those are key decisions that are made 5 or 6 days before you even play the game. And then you get to the game and there's all these different things in the last 3 minutes that go on, and I just believe it's a 57+3 game. It's the same thing in the NFL, and it's a 58+2 game. The games are more than 60% of the games in the National Football League are decided in the last 2 minutes of a game.
For sure. Hey, Mark. So you got Buck Pierce, who is a first-time head coach and the OC with the BC Lions. Corey Mason, his second year as the DC and head coach. You've done that before. And you've done it as a newbie to the league, actually, as calling plays and being the head coach. In your opinion, is there one thing those guys or a guy like that would have to do to make it work? Like, how do you make that work?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The first thing I would tell them is that when the tasks become more important than the people, you're not going to win. If you get caught in the weeds as a head coach on X's and O's and lose sight of what's really important, the coaches, the players, the support staff, it's very difficult to have success. That would be the first thing I would tell a head coach, that he's now the head coach and he's got to manage the team, and the team is people. The team is not plays. And I think we get lost in that a little bit. So I think that's number one on the hit parade, Michael. That the players come first, the staff comes first, the support staff comes first. The task is down the line a little bit. Now they're both, I kind of followed Buck a little bit more because as a quarterback coach and player and et cetera. So, and then like for me, it was easy for me to call the plays because what we did is we made the field 53 yards wide and just ran the offense we ran in Oakland and San Francisco. That's what we did in Montreal,
okay.
Truth be known. And we used the sixth man because the quarterback can never get to number 6 in the progression.
Right.
There's no time. So, and then the offense evolved. We brought the 6th guy in and did more things with bunches and stacks and things like that. But the mindset was to get this done early, we got to make it an NFL field. And then what we did is when we got together with, Anthony and Ben, we started utilizing waggles that weren't just vertical. They were horizontal. They were over the top. We really built a system where, this is kind of complicated, but in the NFL, you might shift to a formation and then motion to a formation. What we did is we motioned to motion to a formation, and then we motioned back, so we made it, and that's the beauty of the CFL. You can be creative in those things and make it really hard defensively. And then there weren't a lot of bunches and stacks that when I watched tape of the previous year's games around the league, there wasn't any of that. And then we just started building from there. But I forgot where the original question was. But back to the coaches.
Yeah.
Back to the coaches. So.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me ask it to you this way, Mark. Okay, piggybacking on what you said right at the start, which I think was a great comment about the people. I've always wondered this. Can you risk alienating a side of the ball? Like, for instance, you're the offensive coordinator, right? You're calling plays, and your team, your side of the ball has a shitty practice or a shitty game, and you're in your own head about, oh, man, come on, we got to be better than that. But you forget how good your defense played or that your special teams had, because you're the OC too. Can you risk that, getting caught in the weeds like you said?
Oh, yeah, well, this comes through experience. That's all I can say. I mean, I never felt those things like like I always said, we're every day, like we're going to be in a competition. And a competition, the word competition comes from a Latin word competere, which means striving together. So football is a zero-sum game. Somebody wins and somebody loses on every play of every practice, on every play of every game, and every week somebody wins or somebody loses. So players and coaches have to understand that there's this balance between the inevitability of adversity on a play and the inevitability of success as well. Somebody's winning and somebody's losing. So I've worked for coaches who their mindset is it's us against them. I've never thought of the game that way. I've thought of it as us versus us together. And I would not expect, like a lot of teams script practice and they do it for success. Like if we went 0 for 6 in a Skelly period with Anthony Calvillo and he was ticked off, I would just say, bad break, bro. You might go 0 for 6 in the game. Deal with it.
Yeah.
So I never worried about, success or failure in practice. I always felt that what was important to see was an ebb and flow of success and failure, because failure is one of the most important things you have to learn how to experience in practice, so you're capable of handling it in a game, because it's going to happen. Nobody is running 75 perfect plays.
No, 100% right.
So I think that, well, can it happen? Yes. Is it avoidable? Absolutely. And a lot of that done in team meetings, where coaches can show that, I never thought that from my standpoint, I'm sure it wasn't the same from players, that I was an offensive coach when I was coaching in Montreal, because I did everything I could to start the day to show how we're all directly or indirectly connected, that everything anybody does is going to affect the scoreboard. And that's why we need focus, in the moment, win the day type of attitude with each and every play and each and every moment of the day.
Marc, who is your right-hand man? Because sometimes I think, okay, if you're the OC and the head coach and the DC and the head coach, and there are strategic things that come up in the game, like maybe when we're using a timeout or what, that type of thing. Who's helping you on the side? Who's helping you on the sidelines?
Well,
I'm talking in a CFL game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. It just depends. With every coach is different. I'll give you an example. When we played Saskatchewan in the second Grey Cup.
10.
I
2010. 2010, yeah.
So we always had a what it takes meeting the night before the game. And we knew to beat Saskatchewan, we had to gain a possession. The best way to gain a possession was on a fake punt. So we decided we were going to fake a punt in the game if we had the parameters to do so. So I looked over at Andy Bischoff. I'm calling plays. I'm not thinking about faking kicks. I told Andy Bischoff, as soon as we've got the parameters, which might have been between the 35s, by our bench, whatever it is, grab me and let me know, because we need a possession. And we got the fake, we got the first down, and we won by 3.
Yeah.
So it's just it all depends. Everybody's got their guy. They've got their guy, in the box, on the field. Every coach needs an inner circle. They need 1 or 2 guys that can be vulnerable with them, can be empathetic with them, can communicate with them and let them know when, because as a head coach, you think you have, you think you've got a sense for the locker room, but you don't always have that. You need somebody else to help you with that.
Interesting. Okay, a couple more questions for you, Marc. I appreciate it. Listen, truth be told, we tried to do this interview earlier, and the power went out on a beautiful day in White City, Saskatchewan. So I kind of buried the lead here. Like, you have been a long-time coach, and you're going to coach people, like you said, at law school in Miami, and probably whenever they reach out to you, because you got lots of interests and lots of opinions and great advice. But as a coach, you're done, right? So when did you come to that decision?
I did it, after a year in LA, being around people I really loved, a quarterback I just look up to as one of the great elite human beings besides a quarterback. I mean, Justin Herbert is out of his mind elite on every level. Intelligence, work ethic, accuracy, athleticism. He's got it all. It's just a matter of time. But I just decided that it was time, that I wanted to have more time to do other things, and I thought about it a lot, and I talked to a friend of mine who I trust and said, you're never going to have harmony right away. You don't just retire from something you've done your whole life and have harmony and it all feels great. It hasn't, but it also felt right, and it still does. So, with training camp just a couple weeks away, I don't feel the biorhythms working to the extent that I would want to go back.
So Justin Herbert, I'm a Chargers fan. Where's my helmet? Right there.
I wouldn't know that by the background.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that. So, well, the reason I became a Chargers fan is we only got one game a week up here in Canada when I was a 9-year. Usually what you like, Mark, when you're 9 or 10, music, actors, sports heroes, teams, they stay with you for your life. So I turned on the 80, it would have been the 81 season, but the 82 playoff game between the Dolphins and the Chargers. The hook and ladder, the Kellen Winslow, all that stuff.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I became a Chargers fan because I'm like, holy cow, these guys throw the ball like a CFL team. I love it. So, and I like their colors and everything like that. So I went from Fouts to Rivers, and then when they left L.A. or San Diego, I was like, I'm done with them. I want them to be the San Diego Chargers. But then they got this Herbert kid, and I'm like, I got to stay with the Chargers. Do you think after working with him, he's going to win a Super Bowl before his career is all said and done? Now, I know there are other factors, but you know what I mean.
Well, as I've told him, and I've always told all the quarterbacks, that every quarterback's on their own journey. And so he can't look around and say Mahomes. He can't say Mahomes. He can't, whoever the guys are, he can't say Jalen Hurts and say, why not me? You can't approach the game that way. I mean, Steve Young didn't even start till he was 29 and didn't win a Super Bowl. He was 34. I don't know the exact. Rich Gannon won the MVP at 35. There's Kurt Warner in a grocery store. So it's all subjective. At the end of the day, though, the toolkit is there. I think the coaching there is just outstanding. Greg Roman, the staff that Jim's hired, just outstanding. Defense is going to be good. Jesse Minter there, just outstanding young defensive-minded coach with a great staff. They're really good people, care about the players. Jim is a very unique guy. Jim Harbaugh, unique guy. He 15 years as a decorated veteran in the NFL. He's won everywhere he's been. He was my quarterback coach in Oakland when I was a coordinator there. That's how I've known him for over 20 years. I think they're set to make a move in what is a very tough division. I mean, it's a Mahomes division. It's going to get harder with Pete in Vegas. That's not going to be easy. And with Sean Payton in Denver, it's as difficult a division as you could have. But if you take care of the ball, and one thing the Chargers did last year, they were the best at taking care of the ball in the whole National Football League. That got us to the playoffs. If you get to the playoffs, anything can happen with a guy like Justin Herbert. So I'd put my money on him. Okay,
so Mark, I like asking people this question. You learn a lot, I think, more in failure than you do success, okay? You can learn things in success, but when you fail, I think you learn more about how to do something differently and more about yourself. Can you give me a time when you failed and how you used that to become better?
Yeah, I'll just keep it in the CFL category. I mean, we lost the first year I was in Montreal. We lost the Grey Cup to Calgary in our own building with 60,000 people in our own building, and that was a terrible failure on my part. I didn't do a good job coaching. There's reasons why I won't talk about here, but I let some things get in my head that distracted me from the game. that were going on around, some logistical things that had happened just prior to the game that got me off on a tangent, got my mind going other places, and I think it really affected my ability to call the game. I regret it, and I'm sorry to every player and coach and support staff, that was there, because it was a game. I'm not saying we could have won or should have won, but I don't think it was as competitive as could be, because I was still heated up from something that had happened, relative to the logistics of the game. And so I think that's kind of a different kind of failure. I failed myself, I failed the team, and I think that, there's two ways you can go with failure. You can, as you said, you can learn from it, grow from it. When things have happened along the way that have been distracted, I've been much quicker at taking some deep breaths and getting focused on the moment and moving back into it. But you can't carry the past with you into the present moment. It's just going to distract you and make the present moment not present. So I think that was just something that just flashed in my head.
So Marc, do the losses stick with you more than the wins?
None of the wins or losses are really ever on my mind. The championships are never on my mind. I don't value them and put them in that gives me stature. I don't think about any of that. I just think about the people, the lives. Winning in Montreal was an incredible experience, because I got to meet the families of our players when we went to the playoffs, and we had parties and seeing what wonderful parents they had, and just growing people. Just that's when you watch Hall of Fame inductions and all they do is talk about locker rooms. They don't talk about catches or wins, and so I never think about that. And I just love waking up in the morning. Some days I'll get a text from a player, get a call, see that they've, I think about Brian Chu this year, and I think of all the work he put in the 5 years I was with him, the time and effort to make sure we protected Anthony Calvillo. So proud of him. And now he's coaching football. Scott Flory, coaching football. Marcus Brady, coaching football. Anthony Calvillo, coaching football. And I got a number of guys down here that are doing it the same. And changing lives, nothing to do with games, nothing to do with wins or losses. I mean, that's why football is an incredible platform, because you're dealing with so many people each and every year. And it's amazing the lives you touch. You don't even realize it till 10 years later. You get a text and you go, Coach, I never even played for your team, but I wanted to say thank you. And those are the things that have made it all worthwhile.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was going to ask you what you're most proud of, but I'll word it this way, because I coached young kids, and I'll be in a grocery store and somebody who's like 28 with their own little kids will come up and say, "Hey, Coach." It makes me feel old, but I wear it. I wear it as a badge of honor. How about yourself? When you got guys still calling you saying, "Hey," like if a Scott Flory calls you, say, "Hey, Coach," or Brian Chu or Anthony Calvillo, like, is that what makes you the proudest, that you played a role in their lives?
That's the reason I did what I did, because of that. I mean, that's the only way to mortality is to touch the lives of others. It's the only way you can be immortal.
Yeah.
Because we're all going to the same place, right, Michael? Eventually.
Yeah.
So the only way you can live on is live through the lives of others, and football gives you an exponential opportunity to do that each and every day. I mean, when you stand in front of 100 people every morning and talk to them, you're going to influence them. One way or the other. I mean, leadership is influence, I-N, inside. It's influence, it's inspiration, I-N, inside. And that's the job of a coach.
2 more questions. I could talk all day, but you probably have to golf, and I have to go.
No, I don't. I'm looking out at a watered down golf course right now. We had a torrential storm.
Okay, so you are golfing now. What can you, because you're trying to, I don't know, replace the right word, but yeah, you're replacing football with other things, okay? golf and football, are there anything from football that you can bring to golf that kind of challenges you, or that mentality?
I don't look at golf that way. I mean, I started playing in the pandemic year. I had never played golf.
Okay.
And I like being outside. I like the camaraderie of playing with guys. I enjoy that. I think that's really important to relationship build, you know, when you're not in a locker room. So I have that. I mean, you know, I'm doing more with the book, and the class I teach is really a locker room. We treat it like a locker room. We don't treat it like a law school class. We have MBA students. We have lawyers that are in the class and third-year law students. So I do that. So I don't know. Golf is, I think the beauty of golf is you learn something new about yourself every day, you know, and it's all different things. And you learn a lot about other people in a very short period of time.
Good way to put it. Hey, you talked about mortality. Let's wrap up this conversation. I hope it's not the last time we talk, but you talked about mortality. So you're retired from football coaching. How would you want on your, for lack of a better way to put it, your head coaching tombstone? How do you want to be remembered as a coach? What would you want your players or media types to say about you?
Yeah, I mean, he spent his life in the service of others.
That's a good way to put it. That's pretty simple, man. Hey, by the way, has anybody reached? Listen, this is my opinion, not yours. The CFL walked into something. They stumbled into something a few years ago where they had the combine here in Regina, and they put a CFL week around it where they brought guys in. It was 2017. I think you were still in the league, and they brought guys in, and we had a week. They brought Warren Moon in. I'd love to see them go back to that again. They got away from it. It was kind of like a mini Grey Cup week in the wintertime in Canada. So whether it's Saskatchewan or Winnipeg, I think those would be the two places. But have you ever been approached about coming back to Canada, being on a panel, being in for a Grey Cup week? Because, man, I'm talking to you for 37 minutes. I could hear you on a pregame show for 2 hours.
I have never been, and I say this with no ill will.
Yep.
I have never been invited to Canada for anything.
So,
but I am going to Montreal in September to see Keith Urban. So I invited myself back to Montreal. They're not playing. Unfortunately, the Alouettes aren't playing. But I can't say I haven't been invited. I was invited back by Mr. Wittenhall when he was alive to a game, and I did attend a game, and they gave me a small award. But you know how I feel about the CFL. I'm as big a fan as anybody. I really respect you, Michael, and the fight and the love for you have for the game. But unfortunately, for me, I've never been invited back for a Grey Cup, on a panel, for an interview, other than, probably you're the only one I've talked to my recollection.
Well, a light just went off. A light just went off in my head, so that's good. That's good. Now it's rolling for me.
But I mean, I'm just, I want the league to succeed. It's the bet. It's as good a football as there can be, and. I think that people, I'll close with this. It's kind of a downer, but, the CFL doesn't have OTAs. They don't have mini camps. There's about 10 days to bring a team together. Football's a really hard game. So even in the NFL, like, here's a good example, is Justin Herbert didn't play the first 3 games, the last 3 games of preseason, because he was hurt.
Right.
He didn't practice. So we didn't really get juiced up until 2 or 3 weeks till he had some reps. So, I think that like over the last few years, I thought the quarterbacking was pretty even throughout the league. And you know better than I do, but I thought there were some good quarterbacks in the league, more than maybe we had when I was there.
Yeah, I think it's starting to wane a little bit, because I think a lot of NFL guys are staying in the NFL because of the practice roster money and the way they look at quarterbacks differently with RPOs, and the guys that would come to Canada in the past don't come here as easily as they would.
Yeah. Well, the whole RPO game was, started, when I got in the league. I always say that the reason why we had so much success as an offense is because Scott Milanovic and Marcus Brady put the RPO game in. That was really our movement and run game.
Yeah.
And Anthony was a wizard at it, of pulling the ball and getting the quick throws, and that's what they're doing in the end. That was the precursor to what the NFL is doing now.
Yeah.
But I just think that it's hard to get it going early. We were lucky, but I think we were lucky because of the people we had playing. As I always said, when I walked into the locker room, we were pretty good before we got on the field. Once AC was going to play.
Yeah. Hey, one more here since I got you here. You're great because you can talk from an American's perspective. This, when I get into it with people online too, I just had one today too, saying, you know what? I'll go to games when they dump the Canadian ratio and the best players play. But then other people say, well, this is the best Canadians have ever been. Look how many go to the NFL. From a guy who came up here and coached Canadians, and you talked about it being a thinking man's game, I think that's a cool aspect of the game, how you got to move your roster around, not only in the offseason, but week to week. And I think these Canadians, yeah, they take a little time to develop, but they can stack up against anybody. I look at Winnipeg, for instance. Connor Hellebuck, the goalie's probably the most recognizable athlete. Then it's Brady Oliveira and Nick Dembski, two Winnipeg boys that do camps, rescue dogs. Like, without the ratio, those guys might not get a crack, and then they're not pillars and stars in their community. That's not a cut down for their talent. I'm just saying, I think the ratio is so important. Did you think it as a detriment? What did you think of the ratio?
No, I think I looked at it as part of the thinking man, part of the game, and I don't see how you could get rid of the ratio. That's what makes the game the game. It's having to play the chess match each and every week. Yet, it's Canadian football. There should be Canadians playing in it. And I think, again, I don't know how long the rule has been there, but like Wally says, you got to be careful changing the rules, because we have a hell of a game. So I wouldn't admonish any idea of making those kinds of changes, because it does go into preparation. It does, reflect on the CFL community in Canada, and I think it would be repressive and inappropriate to change that rule.
Mark, I hope we'll talk again sometime.
Always good to be with you, Michael. Say hello to all my friends in your neck of the woods. They were always gracious. One of the reasons I love the CFL, I never went into a town where the Canadian fans weren't gracious, and that certainly goes for your town.
Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go!